17.5 rebounds per game.
Should have gone with the gut.
Yeah.
The answer is 22.5.
I would have gotten it right on the button.
Right.
Nailed it.
No.
23.
You nailed
I
it.
let I didn't go with my
Why
gut.
did
My
you
gut.
do that?
Oh, that's
Y'all
terrible.
stop.
That's pretty
Y'all
good.
stop.
That's pretty
Y'all
good,
stop.
Stephen A. That I almost
please.
nailed that
You did.
right on the button.
my-
You give me a hard time.
Shay.
That's pretty good.
Shay.
Pretty good.
Yes.
Jeff Saturday, everybody and their grandmama who follows basketball knows that Bill Russell averaged 22.5 rebounds. That's one of the easiest questions you can
No,
ever
they
ask
don't.
anybody.
Oh, that's an
Absolutely.
M-How. Really?
Absolutely. Because Will Chamberlain was so phenomenal as an offensive player, so many people wondered why was Bill Russell so successful. Obviously, the pieces he had around him had everything to do with him. Hall of Famers all over the place. But the other side to it was Bill Russell's defense and rebounding. Everybody knows that. Doggy, that was not a hard one. Doggy's trying to act like that was so hard. Wow, let me tap myself on the shoulder. I can remember that.
You got to get the number. We know he's a good rebounder, Steve. We know he can rebound the ball.
No.
Outlet passes.
Anytime you look up Bill Russell, 24.5 rebounds. Used to bring up Shaq. And other men. How come they were? Bill Russell got 22.5 rebounds. Like, hey, that's what you used to say. Come on, stop it.
Oh,
Stop.
you're hot stuff.
Well, then I guess it wasn't a guess, but it was a good assumption.
That was
Maybe
a
we'll
try.
call it. It was a good try. All right, back to football now. Patrick Mahomes, he didn't play well in the Super Bowl. Let's just call it what it was. In fact, the first half for Mahomes was pretty horrific. Fewest passing yards, fewest first downs, most picks and a half for him. He was sacked 6 times total in the game and just really never felt like the Chiefs could get into any sort of rhythm. So we flash back now to last year's Super Bowl run from the Chiefs. Here's Doggy. Take a listen.
I've been watching quarterbacks since Namath and Unitas, okay, back in the mid-'60s. And Starr, I saw him. And Unitas, maybe not quite in Johnny U's peak form, and late 60s on. He still was playing. Namath, we all know. Everybody in the 70s. I'm going to say this really definitively. He's the best quarterback I've ever seen. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. He's the best Mahomes, this is. He's the best quarterback I've ever seen. There's nobody better than this kid. He's unbelievable. He's in all the big games that he's ever played in that I can recall, he's had one bad half.
Well, now he's had more than one bad half. Do you still agree with that?
You jinxed him.
He was great in the post game, by the way.
Okay,
He did a great job. He did a great job. They could have used Saturday blocking. That offensive line was so horrendous. So I'm going to say it wasn't all his fault on Sunday. And Andy Reid.
I was going to say, they could have used me in coaching.
Where's
Saturday with all the props?
You know Stevie knows, the first 14 plays on Sunday afternoon, they threw the ball 13 times.
Oh, I knew.
Right.
Can you run the ball once, twice, just to break it up a little bit? So because of that, I'm going to give Mahomes a little pass, but he threw for 23 yards in the first half. The 2 pick sixes blew the game open.
Yeah.
So I have to quietly move off it and lay low with it as far as being the greatest quarterback of all time. So the hater no longer I have to be the hater again, for crying out loud.
Let me say this. Let me say this. I was shaking my head no back and forth because I was saying, doesn't Mad Dog Russo know the cameras are rolling? How do you come in front of the camera dressed like that? This is horrid. I'm like, could you get your head? It looked like it was on radio, looking like he just popped a couple of gummies. You know, didn't care how his hair looked, didn't care what damn sweater he was wearing. You know what I'm saying? Probably had the dog rubbing up against him before he went on the air. I'm like, good Lord have mercy, look at that.
Shaky.
I didn't get that part. That's why I was shaking my head like that. But let me say this to answer the question directly. Listen, y'all. That was horrible. Listen, we understand that it was the Eagles' defense. You know, that front 4, you don't blitz. You got 7, back in the secondary. Key on Travis Kelce, key on Worthy, key on Hopkins and all of this stuff. We get all of that. But you threw the pick 6 to DeJean, okay?
Yeah.
You threw the other interception at your own 14-yard line. And so, we've seen Brady rattled by the Giants. What we didn't see was that. We didn't see you contribute to beating yourself. And that's what Patrick Mahomes did. And that's what is going to take him along. Of course, Andy Reid, it's the worst game I've ever seen him coach. Yeah. I've never seen Andy Reid appear so lost, so helpless. And that's how he looked that particular this particular game, Super Bowl Sunday. It was really, really, really bad.
Agreed.
And Dougie, to me, what Mahomes needs to do to become and get in the GOAT conversation again, you got to win 2 more titles.
Yep.
Because you got to get at least 5. And the reason why you got to get at least 5, you got to overcome the 2 bad performances in the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl loss to Tampa Bay and now Philadelphia, he's been outscored by 40.
Yeah.
Both games, they've lost, they've lost by more than 18 points.
Yeah.
Only him and John Elway have that distinction of starting quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. That's hard to overcome. 1 title ain't going to do that. You need 2 more to get back in the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I think multiple Super Bowls. I'm with you on this. Just because now you're back in the race. What could have been with the 3-peat would give him a differentiation between he and Tom Brady, right? And even though he doesn't have the 7 titles or whatever, you could still make an argument. Well, Brady never did that, but it didn't come to pass. And he played poorly, to your point, in the game. I'd like to go back to the Andy Reid piece of this, because you said something, Steven, and you said it, Doggy, that really mattered. The reason it looked as bad as it did was because they didn't give him an alternative way of doing it, right? They didn't give him an alternative. They didn't bring in 12 personnel. They didn't help. They contributed to the problem by keeping those 2 tackles on edges and allowing that pocket to get. The one difference that I would say Brady would have gotten in that situation, Belichick and Josh McDaniels would not have allowed that, or Charlie, whichever coordinator, Weiss, whoever it was not going to allow that to happen. Belichick would have said something on the headset, we're going to help fix this, and you saw some of their blocking schemes that were not going to work or not be effective. They were catching and dropping, and they understood compression in the pocket matters. And I think that's probably the part that disappointed me the most, is there was no strategy. It was, let Patrick Mahomes save us. And it's every great quarterback. I played with Peyton Manning. I played with Aaron Rodgers. I played against Tom Brady. I played against Drew Brees. I played against all the greats, right? All these guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame. The Eli Mannings, all of them. Every quarterback that you've seen is mortal when it comes to pressure in the pocket of that substance. There is the only quarterback I've ever seen, and Tannenbaum and I had this conversation early this morning, that could deal with anything like that was Ben Roethlisberger. And that's just because he's a huge human being. But every other great quarterback, you start getting your tackle bumped into you, guys falling around your legs, just bodies draped on you, and you don't even come back with a response of.
But I don't know Saturday that they had a response. They had an undrafted guy playing tackle.
No. But I'm saying even with Tooney moving out, you bring in 2 tight ends, right, and bring them in tight. Like, don't spread them out. Don't get Kelsey. Make him stay in and block. We call it stay protection. Your tight end stay and then late fall. Because you saw Mahomes when he caught it. He'd be 1,002, and he's stepping up. And the receivers haven't even gotten into the route. But his mind was moving that fast. You saw he was unsettled. And to your point, 1 run and 14 plays, you got to take something out of those guys' ears. Yeah, those guys' ears are pinned back,